Hi, I'm Pete Maldonado, the CEO of Chomps. I'm excited to welcome you to Chompcast, a Chomps original podcast where we'll have 15 to 30-minute fireside chats with industry leaders.
And I'm Rashid, the COO. Together, we'll be sharing valuable insights, advice, and real-world examples with aspiring and current business owners. We're happy to have you here along for the ride.
This week, we interviewed the founder of SkinnyDipped, Breezy Griffith. Stay tuned for the end of the interview to hear the POAP word for the episode. Welcome to Chompcast episode 2. I'm Pete Maldonado. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Chomps.
And I'm Rashid Ali. I'm the COO and co-founder at Chomps.
So each week we'll be talking to various industry insiders and leaders. This week we have one of my favorite brands, actually, which I haven't even told Breezy this yet, which is my first time meeting her right now. But SkinnyDipped is one of my favorite brands and products that in existence. So I am so stoked to have Breezy on the Chompcast today. So really great to meet you, Breezy. Thank you for coming.
And Breezy, he's not just saying that. I remember in the Expo West in 2018, he was like talking all about this brand, how amazing they are. I think we ate probably a 12-pack of your big size almonds to get us through the show. But that's where he actually introduced me to the brand as well. So big fan and excited to have you on.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you guys both. Really excited to chat with you. And, right back at you, like Chomps is a favorite brand. It's always something that, now we get to be back in the office. Some is stocked here in our SkinnyDipped office. So stoked to talk with both of you guys today.
Awesome. Yeah. So, well, first off, we're going to let you do a little bit of intro, but I think if I think about SkinnyDipped, and if you think about it, it's chocolate covered nuts, right? But it's not just chocolate covered nuts. Like, you figured out something very, very different and very special about this brand and this product, which allowed you to build a very big business behind it. I heard you in a couple other podcasts and interviews, you talk about this chocolate to nut ratio. And I realized, I'm like, that's exactly what it is. It's the chocolate to nut ratio, and it's actually perfect. So tell us all about it. Tell us about you and how you got started.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I'm the CEO and founder of SkinnyDipped. Founded the company with my mom and actually my two best friends. So we're really proud to be a women-founded business. I don't know if it's best to kind of give you a little bit of an origin story. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. And then we can talk a little bit more product centric. So SkinnyDipped was founded a number of years ago. I grew up in a really close family out here in Seattle, Washington. And I was living in New York at the time, as you do in your 20s. And my sister, her best friend was diagnosed with a terminal cancer at the age of 17. His name was Josh. He was just this bright light, incredible human. And so when that happened, I started to come back from New York to Seattle to support my sister, my family, while we all supported Josh and his family. And I was here for about, kind of the last year of his life. He passed away just after his 18th birthday. And quite frankly, it just changes you. It changed all of us. It changes how you think about everyday life. It changes what you want to prioritize. And so it became this inspiration kind of to start something. I think in particular, me and my mom, we wanted to do something together as mom and daughter. We felt like there's so many father-son businesses and there's not a lot of mom-daughter businesses, not as many as there should be. And we wanted to build something together. We have this deep love and passion for good food. We believe that healthy and enjoyable don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can come together. Healthy, good for you, nourishing food doesn't have to be punishing. So for us, it was just so natural that we wanted to do something in the food space. For us, food is about bringing people together. It's about long dinners around at the dining room table, drinking wine, sharing good food. And we wanted to bring that experience and feeling to others. So we realized we were snacking in the same way, 3:00 in the afternoon, you want to go and eat a chocolate chip cookie. You want something a little sweet, a little bit of protein hit. And so we came up with this idea, what if we created the perfect sweet snack, that it was this nuts and chocolate are this incredible marriage, but we were so used to seeing them in the bulk bins, these dated big bowling balls of nasty waxy chocolate. And we're how do we reimagine this into something that you can eat anytime during the day. And that was kind of the inception for the idea. And like, I mean, we couldn't be any more grassroots. I don't come from a food and beverage background or a business background. Like, we made this on the dining room table in my parents' house. I had like my dad out there with like a paint sprayer filled with chocolate, trying to figure out how to make the product. So we really worked in our home kitchen until we created what we felt was like this like perfectly balanced nut meets chocolate snack. And then we sampled it out to friends and family, and people fell in love with it. And we felt like, hey, we have something here. We have something that, you know, we want to share with everyone. And we both believe deeply that good, nutritious food should be accessible to everyone, not just the few. So that was also kind of a big driving force for, you know, wanting to launch SkinnyDipped. And our two co-founders, my two best friends, joined us. We like all moved into my parents' house, lived under one roof, and, you know, sold SkinnyDipped out of the, you know, the back of the trunk for cash for a year and a half. And we learned, you know.
Was there one big breakthrough that kind of helped? There's like, the way we think about it, there's these evolutions of growth, and typically there's various milestones. So I'm just curious, like, was there one account, customer, something that happened that really validated that, yes, we're running in the right direction, and helped kind of get you to where you are today?
For sure. And I totally agree with you. I think you go through these like, yeah, kind of like evolution, these like big pivotal moments, right? That like kind of like really start to change and the brand's like trajectory. One of those for us was, you know, really, we were like selling SkinnyDipped. I'm telling you, like corner stores, we were doing as many demos as we could. And then we presented to Target, and everyone was like, you guys are insane. You can't go to Target. We hoped for a couple hundred stores, you know, and this was like back when you could go and sit down, you know, and, you know, face to face with a buyer, and the buyer called us, and we flew back to Minneapolis. And, oh gosh, I'd be so mortified if she listened to this and she, you know, what I'm about to say, but she like, you know, she looked at me and she said, you know, Breezy, do you guys have any supply chain issues? And I was like, no, like well-oiled machine. Like, meanwhile, we were making everything out of a barn pretty much. Like it was scary, you know? And certainly we were in no place to supply Target. You know, but I just said it with absolutely no supply chain issues. And she was like, great, we're going to take all your SKUs chain wide in 12 weeks. I was like, amazing, drenched in sweat, you know? And that forced us to grow up very quickly, because we had to professionalize our manufacturing. We had to find supply chain partners that could meet those demands. And like, all we knew is like, we just kept saying like, don't F up Target, like don't F up Target. And so that kind of became this springboard for us to national distribution.
That's awesome. So talk us a little bit about like, actually, so you started in the barn, you're making this stuff, you have this big win. How do you, and you said like professionalizing the manufacturing of it, like talk about scaling that. How did you find these partners, and what was next? How did you make that happen?
Yeah, I think so often, and like, you know, I always fall victim to this too, is like, you know, we look at businesses, right, that we're not a part of. We go, wow, like, you know, wow, they really have their shit together, you know, like, you know, their branding looks great. Like, you know, they're sitting on shelf, like what's wrong with us? And like, the truth is like, it's not pretty. And like, you make a lot of mistakes, and it's a shit show. Like, you know, in those, especially in those, actually still now, like that, you know, but in those early years where you're just trying to put those big pieces in place. So like, I think we wore many hats, the four of us. We realized we needed some help. So we started to hire. That actually became, you know, that was a big like lesson learned in there, for us. But, you know, we started to just go, okay, like we have to deliver, you know, to somebody like Target in 12 weeks. What do we need? We need dependable manufacturing. We need suppliers that we can trust. We knew that we couldn't even hand the reins off when it came to producing the product initially, because these were new manufacturers. They don't know our product like we did. So we were there every run, tasting every batch. Like, honestly, I can't believe I don't have an almond allergy. And so I think it was this combination of like just straight, like belief that like it was just like make it or break it, like do whatever you have to do to make it happen, and simultaneously knowing that in order to survive in the long term we had to start to build a team, that it was an impossibility to do it, you know, with just 5 or 6 of us, which is kind of what our team was at the time. I mean, like when I tell you guys that like we were still at this time doing like QuickBooks, that like you don't even want to see it, like it made zero sense, you know. So there was like this just straight, absolutely vertical learning curve that went on.
And there's nothing. We're actually still on QuickBooks. We signed, well, but we finally signed ERP a couple weeks back, and I'm planning it. But that's awesome. It's so funny. Like everything you say, there's a lot of parallels to our story, and yeah, it doesn't matter how big you are or how buttoned up you may appear to be. Like shit's broken behind the scenes. Like, and but I think that's part of the enjoyment of it, right? Where it's like you're really making it your own. You're learning from your mistake. That's awesome. I'm curious, what did you do from a capital perspective? Because I'm assuming you weren't sitting on piles of cash to be able to immediately buy all the supplies and inventory needed to support the order.
Yes, no, definitely not. We're not sitting on piles of cash. Nope. I don't think we've ever been sitting on piles of cash. So, you know, honestly, like in the early days, like, you know, all, you know, my parents, myself, our two co-founders, Chrissy and Lizzie, like we all put seed money in. Like I took a loan, you know, and that was small money, but it was enough to essentially create this like proof of concept. When we got to the point where we were like, okay, like we have target, like this is going to cost us, you know, $500,000 in raws, and then another $1,000,000 to continue to produce. It was like, whoa, okay. So we did kind of we partnered with a venture fund pretty early on. We partnered with Kavu Ventures, which the founding partners are Brett Thomas and Rohan Oza. Rohan discovered the brand at a very early stage and fell in love with the brand and like its potential. And so they have been partners for us, like kind of since the early days. So, you know, because of that, we were able to access capital. And like the truth is, like, I think this is an important fact because it's like alarming. Like 2% of venture capital goes to women founded businesses. It's a problem. Like it's a really real problem. And if you dig, you know, even further and you look at, you know, minority women owned businesses, it's even worse. And so, you know, for us, like I knew that capital would be difficult to raise and that we had an opportunity to partner with a venture fund that would help support us as the business grew. So, you know, that was our path, and there's been, you know, learnings there too, but they've been great partners to us.
It's awesome. Yeah, no, we're very familiar with them. That they're known to be great partners.
So if you're thinking about, if you're out there looking at other brands, other products, and do you have any like kind of brand crushes that just completely inspire you and that you guys are, you know, working towards being like?
Totally. I mean, I think like Liquid Death is an obvious one. Like, I mean, also just to have like honestly, like the guts to go out there and do what they've done, which was so risky, right? Because in some ways it may have not gone the way that it is, right? And like, to go out there and say things like murder your thirst and death to plastic. Like, I just have like mad respect for that because I think that this industry is so different than it was 5 or 6 years ago, right? Like there's so much competition. There's so many great brands that are coming into the space. And I think you've got to be willing to take risks and be disruptive, be bold, stand out. It doesn't necessarily have to be how Liquid Death has done it, but like, unless you're sitting on piles of cash, you have to be scrappy and disruptive and different. So I love what they're doing. I also just love their mission around, you know, plastic. I just think we need more of that. I think a non-food or beverage brand like Allbirds to me is like so like just such an inspiring brand is what I would say. I love the fact that, you know, they're so forward thinking with their materials and, you know, and design, and they're really breaking the mold in terms of like, you know, just what they're doing in that industry and their kind of, you know, mission. So yeah, probably those two right now. And Goodles. I'm crushing on Goodles because like they just like have a ton of great energy.
So environmental sounds pretty important as it should be. I'm curious, do you guys have any internal initiatives?
Yeah, so I think environmental, I mean, and just give back in general, right? And like, it's so important. And as a small brand, like we have a voice, and we may not be able to do everything, right? Because there's a reality. Like, for example, we make very little margin shipping our product in the summer because I literally refuse to ship our product in mylar bags with plastic gel packs because we melt, right? We're chocolate product. But like, I won't be able to sleep at night if that's how I'm sending our product to someone. So like, we've decided as a company that like, that's somewhere where that's just like a hard like line in the sand. We're not going to do that. We're going to use curbside compostable materials. It's super expensive. It crushes our margin in the summer, but like, I just can't feel right about it. We work hard to work with suppliers like our almond producers that are using dry farming techniques, that aren't using flood irrigation, the bee-friendly almonds. That we work with almond suppliers that are putting in hedgerows versus bringing in pollinators and trucks. That's a huge issue in California. And then our focus really is like, we have a social aspect, a social impact program that we launched, Brick by Brick, and like we use chocolate. There's a lot of issues in terms of that supply chain and what goes on, and we feel like we can make an impact. So we have launched a program that we want our consumers to be part of it, our retailer partners, but essentially we in West Africa, in the Ivory Coast, where our cacao comes from, we've partnered with a 501c3 down there that essentially pays women a living wage to pick up recyclable plastic. That plastic is turned into bricks, and the bricks are used to build schools so that kids aren't working on cacao farms, but they're actually getting an education. So this year, our goal is to build 2 schools. I'm hoping we can build 4. We give consumers an option to buy bricks when they buy SkinnyDipped. They don't even have to buy SkinnyDipped. They can just buy bricks. Like, help us make an impact. So yeah, I think that it's more and more important that brands like us stand up and say something, whether it's social, environmental. We have to be part of the change.
That's fantastic.
That's really cool. I love that. So thinking about like the way when Rashid and I started Chomps back in 10 years ago, we had a specific roadmap and ways that we built it. The industry's completely changed and the environment's completely changed. If you were to start SkinnyDipped today, knowing what you know about the business and the industry and how things have changed, what would you do completely differently? Like, what would your roadmap look like?
Well, you guys sound a little more organized than I was with the roadmap. I feel like we might have had a roadmap, but it's certainly changed a lot. I think that, to kind of what I hinted at earlier, like, for one, there's a lot, the landscape is different. There's so many more brands in the space than there used to be, So I think that probably one thing that I'm just trying to think would have, I think that one of the changes in the industry has been a shift from only growth to growth and profitability. It wasn't that long ago that, profitability didn't matter, right? Because, somebody bigger might say, hey, don't worry about your margins. We'll fix those with our economies of scale and our buying power. Like, those days are gone. And the truth is that there's going to be brands out there that don't make it because they don't have enough levers to pull to get to profitability. And so I think that had I known that, that would have been a focus earlier on, and not to sacrifice growth, but rather to try to balance the two. I think that would have been one. I think, we're a little bit flip-flop in terms of like, we cultivated like grocery and mass, mostly because we were brought in by Target. And the plus side of that is that like, we have a brand that is now proven in the mass market, which, sometimes you can't transition from natural to mass, right? The downside is like, we're underdeveloped in the natural channel. So I probably would have, in tandem with developing mass and grocery, I would have also put more attention towards developing natural at an early stage, just because I think you have some big, important early adopters that shop in that channel.
Cool. Let's get into some of these rapid fire questions. If you had an entire week off to yourself, what would you do?
I would travel to some faraway land. Like right now, I'd love to go to Bodrum in Turkey and just like listen to amazing music on the beach all day and swim in the crystal clear waters and not answer my phone.
Sounds perfect. What's your key target retailer or customer right now that you're trying to land?
Gosh, I always feel like we have so many more than one, but one that we're really excited to develop a partnership with is GoPuff. I just think like they're really disruptive and awesome, and they're catering to the millennial, Gen Z consumer, and just like, yeah, feels like the right fit.
Okay, imagine you were not running SkinnyDipped right now. What do you think you'd be doing?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur since birth, forever, since till death. So I think that I know I would be doing something else that's very entrepreneurial. I have a passion for like experiences and music, and like I would love to do something that like combines like cool like music out in the wilderness, like out in the wild with like, some piece like that, giving people like a really off the beaten path experience that they wouldn't normally have.
That's awesome.
What's your favorite workout?
Running, probably. And I'm a little bit of a psycho, so like I put the same song, like my family thinks I'm insane for this. I just put like the same song on repeat, and then I just go out and run like 5 miles like to one song. So it's kind of therapeutic, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A little crazy, right?
I don't think you're weird. What's your superpower and why?
Superpower in life, I guess, like, I think it's just accomplishing, like getting stuff done. I think though, just as much that is my superpower, my kryptonite, is if I'm not passionate, then I can't accomplish what I need to. So like I have to be passionate, and then I'm like unstoppable. But if I lose the passion, it almost becomes an impossible task for me to push forward.
Do you have any pet peeves?
Laziness. Can't stand it. And like, I think like, just like, that idea that like when people feel like they just like owed or deserved something before, I'm just like I have a deep belief in hard work. Like, honestly, like I think my other pet peeve is when people say like, oh, you're so lucky with SkinnyDipped. I'm like, lucky? Are you kidding me? Like, no, I mean, I'm just like, I'm almost speechless just thinking about it. I get so annoyed because I'm like, this is grit, perseverance, day in, day out, like not giving up. Like, so I think like because I've had to do that to grow the business, I have so much respect for other people that work hard. And I really struggle when I feel like someone like, feels like, oh, I'm just owed this thing.
Entitlement.
Yes.
It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that one. That's for sure. Okay. So I have a question for you. So thinking back in your entrepreneurial journey, you've clearly had great partners from the very beginning. Who would you say has been your most important professional mentor?
It's a great question. And honestly, my answer is I've not really had, like, I would say, honestly, my greatest mentor has been my co-founders along the way. I don't know how I would have done it as a solo entrepreneur. I wouldn't have made it, like, quite frankly. But I've lacked, like, I've just never had, of course I've had people along the way that have, helped and tried to mentor, but I've not had one person that's really like, where I really feel like, wow, they've like, helped to develop me in this journey. And it's something that like I've told myself post SkinnyDipped, like I hope to be able to give back, especially to other women who don't have that kind of mentorship.
Very cool.
You mentioned, Breezy, earlier about failing a lot, which is kind of part of the entrepreneurial journey. I'm just curious, is there one failure that sticks out that you really learned from and helped kind of maybe accelerate growth or help turn the business around?
Yeah, I think failure is just a requirement to growing a business. I don't think there's any way, honestly, to avoid it. And I think you have to learn to be okay with failure and try to avoid the catastrophic ones, I think one of the biggest failures slash maybe just like lessons was that when we started to see this growth early on and we were bringing on retailers like Target and Kroger and everything, we hired very quickly. We hired a lot of people very quickly. And I learned that it's not that easy, that like imparting culture and building a team and having people, want to wake up early and work really hard. And it's just not as simple as it sounds. And so like I learned that process takes time and I don't think it can be rushed. Even like our interview process now is like lengthy because I realized that like people are the difference makers. They really are. So I think I learned that like, in my mind, it would happen. It would all fall into place. And and it's just not that simple.
I agree with that. Culture is obviously critical. Can you talk a little bit about the culture that you're trying to build there and how you're being intentional about making sure that it all stays intact as you continue scaling?
Yeah. So, our roots are in that, we're a mom and daughter, we're like, founded business. And there's pieces of that like kind of influence how we treat each other. We always say that, I'm sure we cross all sorts of like, HR rules, like, where, we have, we're about to have the whole team over into like, my parents' backyard and have dinner there. And like, so there's a part of that that's just like authentically us. And we want people to feel like they're part of something more than just a company. They're part of, this kind of extension of a family. And I think we work hard though to marry that with like cultivating, healthy competition and a winning team. Like no one wants to be on a losing team all the time, right? You want to be on a winning team. And then when you do lose, you want to lose like together and be like, it's okay, we'll rise from the ashes. Like we got this, And so trying to cultivate kind of that sense of like camaraderie, support, and also like individuality. Like I often say that we're like kind of this, this like island of, we always say like misfit toys, right? We tend to attract quirky people, unique personalities. And I think instead of trying to jam everybody into the same box, like trying to celebrate that as like a strength.
So I have one more question for you. So obviously we're entrepreneurs here. We're all in a startup world. There's nothing glamorous about, being an entrepreneur. We talked about this. We're on the same page, right? But what is one thing that you can think of, like, you're like, man, this was an absolute win personally. And for all the grit, all the years of getting punched in the face over and over and over again, getting back up and doing exactly what I'm doing because I love it. Talk a little bit about the payoff, personally. Like what's one thing that you're like, I wouldn't have been able to do this without it?
Well, I think you have those along the way, like, and it allows celebrating those things allow you to weather the storms, right? Which are inevitable, and the failures. So I think that for us, like maybe it's not a single thing, but rather wins along the way, whether it was a win at Target, right? Or even now it's like, we launch our innovation and we get a win with a big retailer. Like we try to celebrate that, because if you don't celebrate those things, then you're just like, oh, like, like this is so hard. Like, so, and I find that the more we celebrate that, the easier the hard days become. I think that one thing for all of the four of us founders is launching our brick by brick program is huge, because it was something that we wanted to do from the start. And, when you asked what I would do differently next time, I would build a give back program in from the start, a margin structure that could support that. But because we didn't have that experience or foresight, we had to wait for the business to get to a certain size so it could support this kind of initiative. So I think for us, there's like, that was a huge missing piece that's like, getting filled, different than when you get an amazing, article, right? Which like feels good, but this is like, we could change people's lives, and even if it's just a little bit, like how cool.
So I think we're getting up to time. So Breezy, first of all, thank you for sharing the story, and your passion is really infectious. It's awesome to hear kind of a fellow entrepreneur. And also it's nice to hear that, we're all facing similar challenges at various stages. Can you let the folks listening, you mentioned Target and Kroger, what were a few other places where they can find your product?
Yeah. Walmart, Whole Foods. We're hitting the shelves in Sprouts in the fall. Hy-Vee, H-E-B, Wegmans. Always find us on Amazon. So go ahead and if you love sweet treats, but you want to be able to snack on them, grab a bag of Skinny Dipped. We just launched a product in Costco in the Southeast. It's caramel bites. They're 1 gram of sugar. They're freaking insane. So if you're in that area, grab a bag.
I'm there. I'll go find some.
Awesome. Love that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Breezy. It was really great to meet you. Thank you for making the products that you do, because I buy a ton of them and I love them. So awesome. Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
Thank you guys both. Really, really nice to chat with you. And, and just know that, we're in great community of entrepreneurs out here. So thank you.
For sure. All right. Take care.
The POAP word of the day is